So, hi everyone, one more time. It is my pleasure to see you all here on our today's alumni talk session with Mariya Savelyeva, former C5+1 Youth Council coordinator, TikTok influencer, and Chivnin scholar who is pursuing her master's degree in the United Kingdom right now. And Lola Sadykova, our YC alumna. Lola has received her bachelor's degree has obtained her bachelor's degree in psychology. So today she will be sharing with you her ideas regarding the topic of today's session from the psychological background. The topic of today's session is social activism, digitalization, globalization, and changing narratives. And before we start, let me tell you more about C5+1 Youth Council. So in 2016, with the US Embassy in the Kyrgyz Republic collaboration, the American University of Central Asia has created a dynamic C5+1 Youth Council that brings together youth from Central Asia and Afghanistan with diverse backgrounds, leadership skills, and mindsets for positive change. Since January 2021, C5+1 Youth Council has been administered by the American Councils for International Education in Kyrgyzstan. The goal of C5+1 Youth Council is to increase connectivity and foster leadership skills for young student leaders through engagement on issues relevant to Central Asia and Afghanistan. Now, let me introduce our first guest, Mariya Savelyeva, to the floor. Mariya?
Hi, hello, Paul.
Uh,
Hello, Youth Council. Hello, the audience.
yeah, please proceed with your introduction and your.
Yeah. Hi, just as Paul said earlier, my name is Mariya. I used to be a program coordinator of Youth Council C5+1 since the beginning of the program, since 2016. So I was in the original group of people who initiated the platform. Currently, I am studying in the UK. I'm studying public administration, which is also a management of different civic initiatives. So today, Paul invited me to speak on activism and online activism specifically, because since 2020, I have started my TikTok platform. I have also a Telegram channel, and just generally am very eager to speak up on issues that make make certain groups in our society uncomfortable to exist. So today I will be talking about online activism and why it is important. Online activism has been very popular in the past few years with the digitalization of daily life, to be honest, to be fair, because as we all understand, activism is a very time consuming and energy consuming activity. You have to be constantly inspired to promote certain topics, certain issues, not only to promote them, not only to raise awareness, but also to encourage people for action, because obviously any change in society happens with the action. And there is a speculation that whether online activism works, whether it's effective, and today we'll try to tackle that and try to see why online activism actually makes sense, why it is one of the easiest ways to contribute to social cause, and how to do it effectively. I will be talking about my own experience. I also will be talking from the perspective of a general activism communities, how to promote certain issues in Central Asia specifically. Also, how well. I mean, this is it on my behalf. I don't want to speak on behalf of other people. So I'm gonna pass the floor to Lola, and she can explain how she'll contribute to the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mariya. And yeah, Lola. Hi, Lola. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. So hello everyone. My name is Lola, and I was in Youth Council in Youth Council from 2017 to 2020. And I am a psychology graduate, and I will be talking today from the psychological perspective on this issue. So I'll be talking about how social activism influence on personal sustainability and mental health. I will tackle the issue of post-traumatic stress reactions and the lack of visible results and acknowledgements, activism and the big picture. It's all the influence on their personal sustainability and activist workplace, lack of self-care, responsibility, and that's all influence to burnout as in relation to their work. So also I will cover the issues of manifestations of these mental health problems from the dimensions of psychological, social, physical, and work-related. Also provide some strategies, coping strategies to activists, online activists, or some activists who's working in organizational or planning to. It also will be covering different dimensions, personal, social, and also work-related as building the boundaries and etc. And it's all from the personal strategies, but also I will cover some organizational strategies as how organizations can help activists to maintain their personal sustainability in terms of mental health. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lola. Before we proceed with our discussion, which will be followed up by Q&A session, let me share more information about C5+1 Youth Council. So the Youth Council is a diverse group of youth from Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan. Every year, new YC members from Central Asian countries in Afghanistan are selected among students representing local universities in Kyrgyzstan based on open competition, which includes application review and interviews, gender balance, diversity, and genuine interest in YC objectives. Currently, the C5+1 Youth Council network consists of 81 YC alumni and 40 YC members. The Youth Council reinforces U.S. Central Asia C5+1 joint goals of the countering violent extremism, Central Asia business competitiveness, the C5+1 transport corridor development component, the C5+1 Power the Future project, and the C5+1 supporting national and regional adaptation planning. Now we will proceed with the discussion. So let me bring back Mariya and Lola. I'm personally will be moderating the session. So I think, are you ready, Mariya, Lola? Are you ready?
Yes,
Great.
like a slow Pavel.
Yeah, I think we can. So my first question is to Mariya. So Mariya, I know that you already touched the subject, but could you please elaborate more on how did you end up in activism area? What brought you there?
Mhm. Of course. So I started being interested in basically how social problems become problems in the first place when I started doing debates. So I want to say that my activism mentality sparked even when I was a teenager, which I find very important. This is why I try to promote all kinds of educational opportunities, because these are the ones that actually teach people how problems become problematized, and how social causes impact on lives of citizens in certain countries. But it wasn't until 2017 when I actually was part of the first event that was an activism, which was a women's march in Bishkek. Since 2017, yeah, that was the first time I went there, and I went since then every year to it felt very empowering to be part of a movement. It felt very empowering to finally start doing something to accommodate to accommodate myself, essentially, because obviously being a woman in Central Asia brings certain complications. It's not there's different social standards, and there's different social influences that affect lives of every woman of Central Asia, despite of their circles. Obviously, there's a race, there's ethnicity that takes cultural background that makes sense. But overall, women in general, I feel, historically has been taking part in all kinds of movements, and I was part of that. So since 2017, I started going somewhere. I started expanding my circles. Obviously, I was a bit scared. It was my first event, so I didn't want to just, go and start doing without actually knowing what to do. So I took some time and observed the activism culture. I expanded my circles, and I had many, many friends who were activists, and they were working for all kinds of organizations. So at this point, it's not only activists who take who work on the volunteer basis. I have some friends who made activism as their career. Therefore, I was able to see how you can combine the personal desire to make the world better with income, which is very important, because you can't survive on good ideas. You have to have money to survive. So since then, and actually, I do think that some part of Youth Council and some part of the projects that we did were kind of related to activism, because we always try to encourage people for action to improve the community around them. And I think this is essentially how activism works. Once you start improving the lives of your own life and the lives of the people that you love around you, once you start seeing the change on a smaller scale, it's easier to move forward. It's easier to establish a path towards a bigger change. So this is how it was for me. And then over the lockdown, I obviously was quarantined, and everything was online anyway. So I downloaded TikTok, and I realized that TikTok doesn't necessarily have to be an entertaining platform only. I've been thinking about creating a YouTube channel for a while. At the time, but YouTube is very time consuming, so I decided to stick with TikTok, and that's how I found my following. This is how I found my audience. I just started talking. That's it. I just started talking, and people started listening, and I found some reciprocation, and I moved forward from there. Obviously, the videos that I make are inspired by the comments that I get, by the feedback, and generally by the problems that I encounter on daily basis as a woman. So just to sum up, so my activism mostly focuses on women's rights, women empowerment. But at the same time, I try to also not forget about other social causes, like environmental cause, human rights in general. Speak up against all the bad stuff, to put it nicely.
Okay, thank you very much, Maria. And the next question is just how is your personal experience with being in activism, but in online sphere? How did online activism influence your mental health, and whether it influenced it or not?
So I'm gonna be speaking because again I'm very new to the whole activism spectrum, and obviously before I didn't have an opportunity to commit to it on the basis that I was committed at some point. But this is a very good point, and I mean the reason why I've agreed to this session, because this is something that not that many people talk about, the mental health of people who have to work with already vulnerable topics. These topics, the topics of promoting human rights, especially in the countries that are under certain regime, that have a certain mentality, is very hard. or for personal perception, because all the time you have to prove yourself. Basically, all the time you have to prove your ideas, and you have to fight off people who doubt you all the time. And there are so many people, obviously, who doubt the ideas of certain ideas. I don't want to go into details, but this is something that I did not expect to happen. Obviously, nowadays social media algorithms, they work differently. For example, specifically on, I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's how it works on other platforms as well. But on TikTok, once you start following certain trend, your basically content consumptions only focuses in this spectrum. For example, if you type in feminism, or if you type in, or even if you Google, to be honest, TikTok knows everything. Even if you Google feminism, in your feed, you'll start seeing more and more videos. Therefore, it creates some sort of bubble. So you think that, you get the feedback, and it seems like everybody agrees with what you're saying, because obviously you get the audience that is specifically interested in the subject that you talk about. So this is one reality. The other reality is the real world. Obviously, that whatever happens online not necessarily reflects the life that we have, real life that we have offline. Obviously, people can agree with you online, but when you go out, you have to meet with certain people, you have to do certain stuff, and it doesn't necessarily reflect. So I think this is one of the most significant difference, that things that happen online not necessarily are the same way offline. And this also creates some sort of dissonance. It creates some sort of derealization almost, especially if you spend most of your time online. Well, I've been doing a work online, I've been doing studies online, everything was online. And being, or constantly being online and trying to, at one hand you have the audience who agrees with you, on the other hand you have a very, also completely the opposite, meaning that if the audience really really like you, there is always going to be people that really really don't like you. They hate you, they tell you all the bad stuff. I did have a very negative experience. And obviously when you have some people who wish who wish you really bad, you start doubting yourself. You start thinking, why did I deserve this kind of words? What did I do wrong to deserve some kind of hate? And this obviously creates this whole idea, you want to protect yourself, you want to shut down. This is how it was for me every time. I mean, I'm better now with it, but previously, every time that I would get negative comment, it would definitely made me doubt myself, and it made me doubt my ideas, which is obviously the worst. And when you doubt yourself, when you aren't inspired to continue, obviously your activism suffers, because you can't do something that you don't believe in. So this is one spectrum of the problems that I've encountered. And this further, it causes you to just being discouraged to create content, discouraged to continue. You start occupy yourself with all these thoughts and all the doubts and all the debates constantly in your head. Am I right? Am I wrong? What they say. So you try to accommodate everybody on the platform, and therefore you lose interest, basically.
I believe you were talking about burnouts, right?
I do talk about burnout. This can be one of the consequences, yes.
Mhm. Lola, do you have anything to add with regard to burnout?
Yeah, sure. I have anything to add, something to add. So, of course, social activist and especially online activist is more prone and vulnerable to burnout and post-traumatic stressful situations. So what is burnout? It's the state of the exhaustion by long-term stress, and post-traumatic stress reaction is also like a burnout, is the long-term consequences of stress. And of course, social media activists, and of course, burnout and stress reactions is differ from occupation, and social media activists always are vulnerable to the opponents, or, for example, as Masha mentioned, to the audience, negative feedback, and what it can be like, if it's physical social activists or online activists, they still face the attacks of the opponents, or police abuse or sexual assault, and different others. And also they witnessing the second traumatization, like secondary traumatization, like they observe how witnessing the social violence and oppression and poverty and environmental destruction and etc. And it's on their daily basis. The secondary what can influence on the mental health of the social warriors is activist work. Involves long-term goals that often seem unachievable. That's, of course, it can be influenced to the unseen the results, like by delivering it to the audience, that sometimes they carrying the burden of knowledge to the society as a whole is unable to perceive and unwilling to face these realities. And it's, of course, influence the feeling of pressure and isolation. And also the activists, and especially online activists, their workplace, like online workplace, is always, how to say, it's overwork, there's the urgency, and there's lack of boundaries between work, and expected to be, as already said, overworked and underpaid. So it's, and they always wear the banner of the oppression in order to promote themselves. So it's always willing to correlate their personal lifestyle to their work style, to their work, and of course an influence to the cultivating and maintaining mental health. Another reason it can be why burnout is raised in social media activists is a lack of self-care. So every day they make a choice to care for to help someone, and most of the time they choose not themselves, and to serve others first. And it's everyday decision about their well-being, and of course it can be personal, like coping strategies that they use differ from each person, and it's more complicated topic, but every day they choose how to take care of themselves. And of course it can lead to burnout, the lack of the knowledge of this help strategies, coping strategy skills. And another reason, it's already kind of touched it, is responsibility that differ from each activists, what responsibility they carry on, and of course it's also pressure that influence on arise from the high pressure engagement with opponents and different other. Is also great awareness of the risks that come in, like oppression or some more greater responsibility to the society itself. So yeah. And also I didn't mention, like how it manifests. Of course it manifests in, as already said in previously, different dimension, like physical, social, and personal, and also work related, like lack of boundaries, that what can be seen. So in physical, it's an ability to stay focused, for example, insomnia, difficulty to sleep, and feeling physical tension, headache, backache, and lots of pleasure in food. It's lots of pleasure in friends, spending in other activities, spending time with them. It's again correlates to the social already. And a creeping feeling that difficulty to make decisions. It's a cognitive one and psychological one, pervasive feeling of hopelessness, a loss of sense of purpose and energy, and in general sense of feeling of emptiness. And is due to the lack of the boundaries with work and social life. It's creeping feeling that activism is taking over your life. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, Lola. Mariya, does it correlate with you somehow?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I can very much relate. It
Um,
feels I feel very personal.
uh, okay, could you please share with our viewers like the ways you can escape from these burnouts, how to avoid those burnouts, what actually to
Mhm.
do first when you're just entering this world of online activism?
Right.
It's
Well, just like Lola said, everything she said is very true. For example, obviously one of the biggest problems is lack of boundaries, especially with maybe online activism, because you know, you have your notifications and you have constantly have some kind of comments, and you also, I mean, it depends on the person, but for example, in order to keep basically in order to keep your content up there, you have to react all the time. So for example, it's unproductive to just upload the video and leave it be, because obviously you have to interact with your audience, you have to interact with the content so that it goes further and further, so it gets more awareness. And this means that you have to be on call 24/7 basically. And this is something obviously that creates obstacles for your personal life, for your work, for whatever you're having, because while there is some there, again, because there is always a chance that among these notifications you'll get something that isn't nice to know, nice to hear. You also constantly have to prove yourself. Basically, I feel this is one of the challenge. I mean, this was the biggest challenge for me, because honestly, obviously, I believe in everything that I say. I try to enact. I try to bring positive change to the community around me. But at the same time, as Lola said, being already traumatized from living in a certain conditions, and now you have to prove that what you've experienced is wrong. Now you have to prove that, you know, there is an alternative way. And when, especially when you get no positive comments, no positive feedback on that, this is something. So you basically have to relive your trauma once again and again and again. And the only advice that I found so far on technical spectrum, for example, is to obviously set your notifications right. For example, I do have on my phone, on my all my devices, I do have a mode like sleep mode, or I think that's what it's generally called. So if I'm not disturbed during my rest hours, this is essential. And honestly, I do turn off all my notifications for all social media. I think this is a generally good advice. Not even not even not only for activists. It's generally good to have to be free from social media. So this is something that I do. But when it comes to coping, with the stress and anxiety in regards to social cause that you're promoting, I think it's essential to take breaks, to kind of every time you feel overwhelmed, just take a break, recollect yourself, recharge yourself, maybe even spend some time consuming content, or even maybe no content at all, whatever, because different people have different types of recharging scenarios. For me, it works to kind of shut it down completely, take a break off social media, delete social media, and then once I feel comfortable again, I get back to it. But it's an ongoing issue. I don't have a magic pill or a cure how to be effective 7 days a week, and I don't think there is a cure for that. So it's whatever works best. But on a technical spectrum, again, just try to be offline as much as you can.
Thank you so much. I think I will try some of your Lola, do you have something to say to reply?
Yeah, actually, the last what Masha mentioned about the taking a breaks, it's actually the very important, because even some organization like in not social media activists, offline activists, some AIDS organization, they create a green card, so you can take a break 3 or 6 months, and without the relation to work, you get paid for that break, and then you can come back and say, do you want to continue, or you just wanted to stop doing anything? And also just personal breaks, of course, it's important in this issue. So yeah, I would like to provide some strategies on, again, different dimensions, like in personal or social and physical and etc. So personal one, it's in the personal dimension, it's physical health. So some research suggests to take walking, running, take a breaks, like eating healthy, taking sleep. Of course, it's obvious suggestions to help your physical health, but it's really important to get much rest in correlation with the work that you have, especially in online activism, occupy different realities. So it's especially to differentiate between them, and getting enough rest and learn to how to relax. Social health. So some women human rights activists, they stated that it's important for them to be involved, highlighted that to be involved with their friends, with the emotional support, like crying or talking, getting comfort or laughter, and etc. But in opposite one, it's also, yes, it's suggested that to maintain friends outside of the activists. And in different opinion, it's important also to build the in community building, so to be involved with the activists themselves in activities. Another coping strategy, it's to be more self-nurturing, self-soothing, to involve in creativity, like music writing and crafting, taking the breaks, to again learn how to relax through meditation or mindfulness activities, like to be more in reality, physical reality itself, rather than online. And again, learn emotional health. It's again about the emotional self-management, to get the knowledge of their essential needs, to understand your essential needs, and to learn how to maintain them and balancing them. Learning how, again, to get away, to say no. In relation to work, it's saying no to some external demands, or not working on your weekends, and to learn how your working style works, and to be in and go with getting with that. So, and organizational strategies, if you're planning to work in organization or involved in some, so it's better to seek the organization that provides a good relationship within the company, that's slow in the pace, like family related policies, that provide family-related policies, environment, acknowledgement, and rewards. Of course, work in order to not to burn out. The simple cure is to get paid. And also specific interventions like group counseling activities or some seminars, even if you're not going to work in our organization itself as an online activist or like social offline activists, it's better to create this environment for yourself that help you to maintain this work-related atmosphere in order to help your mental health in a better way. So yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay, thank
I
you.
also wanted, before we proceed to the next section of our session, I just remembered One of the best advices that I've received before I became an activist. So I know that many people who try, because obviously many people have like ideas how to make the community or how to make the world better and etc., but they just need a little bit of encouragement. And I noticed every time I speak on these issues, and some general feedback that I get is people don't know where to start, and people who do know how to start, they feel a great sense of responsibility, right? They don't feel like they're competent enough to promote certain subject, or even to speak up on certain issues. So I just wanted to comment on that. One of the biggest advices that I received was that everybody in activism, everybody does whatever in their capacity. For example, even the smallest contribution is fine. You don't have to be an expert on certain subject to present your idea, because this is your idea. You need to do as much as you can. For example, I understand that all of us have different social boundaries and different understanding of certain subjects. Back in the day, for example, before I became a feminist, I didn't think that I'm good enough to be feminist, if it makes sense, because I follow so many different social structures, and I felt like I wasn't accepted in the feminist community because I had an understanding of what feminist looks like. But at the same time, it's not true at all. um, you have to expand your horizons on what things are. If you feel that you're right, do something about it. Like go about it, start doing it. And how you start doing it, it starts with the basics. Especially now when we talk about online activism, anything can become a platform. For example, the reason why I feel many activists choose TikTok is because of algorithms, how they work. Basically, you can be anyone. You don't have to have following. You can have 0 people following you, but your video will still be in the views. So this is how you get your audience, which is the easiest platform among other social media platforms. And from there you move on. From there you'll see you use hashtags, you create. There is a certain mechanisms. I'm not going to go into details, but there's guides, basically guidelines. Everybody can find them online. How to be productive on promotion of certain subjects. So this is how you start, but the mental preparedness should be there also. Just try to, as Lola said previously, try to surround yourself with people who are in the community, or at least try to reach out, because in the community people actually support each other. I didn't understand that before, because I thought that I was very much left alone with my ideas and my content. But once I started reaching out to fellow creators, I found that everybody's eager to talk. Everybody is eager to exchange anything, actually. Advices, ask for advices, don't be afraid. So yeah, so I just wanted to point that out. Don't be afraid, and don't feel responsible to do more. Just do as much as you feel so to say, unless you're paid for it, then it's a different subject.
Thank you very much, Maria. Unfortunately, our time for discussion has just ended, and now we will proceed with our Q&A session. So, dear audience, please feel free to drop your questions in the comment section. Um, and I believe our first question was from IPD. So, IPD is asking, well, first of all, she's thanking you, and she is asking, in your opinion, why online activism is important?
um, I'll take this question. So online activism, I mean, it is as important as any other kind of activism, but there is a general, I guess, general disregard for online activism, saying that it's not as effective, that there is no action behind it. But to be fair, we have to come to realization that the world at the moment, as it is now, is moving towards digitalization. There's so many encouragement for action, online petitions, online campaigns, online promotion of certain topics, even raising awareness on itself. It might not be actual action, so to say, but at the same time raising awareness, for example, on certain subjects. It is a slight change in perspectives. And what people fail to realize is that everybody is at the reach of their social media platform. Everybody has their phone with them. Everybody is registered somewhere on some sort of social media platform. And we live in the day and age where you can reach people from 100 miles away with the touch of a phone. So with that logic, for example, every time you have a new subscriber, let's say, or even if you are a follower, I follow many different people, and I can see their ideas just every time I pick up the phone. And I think this is essential, how fast we can connect to our audience and how fast audience can reach back. And with this spectrum, online activism is essential in order to promote shift in mentality, almost, even if it doesn't actually bring action to it.
Lola, do you have something to add?
Sure.
What is your opinion about this question? Thank you very much, by the way, Mariya.
Sorry, I missed your comment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you now. You were muted
Perfect.
before. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much, Mariya. And I was just wondering if Lola has something to say about this.
So, yeah, of course, online activism is important, and I'm not the one to say to speak up from the activist side. So, but as a viewer, or I'm also everyone is kind of activist and involved in different perspectives, but online activists, it's more about they get into more larger audience and to get in different kind of, not platforms, but through different kind of locations even, and to get in more involved in it's more about political issues. And but I think it's important because it's more reachable to different kind of audience rather than offline activism. But of course, online activism it lead to offline activism at some point. But so it's better to start there. And okay, again, it's of course it's important.
Thank you very much, Lola. Our next question is from Munzi Da Vinci. Which one is more convenient for you, online activism or offline? Which one is more influential for the audience, you think?
I think when it comes to comparing those two, we have to accept the realities of offline activism, that people get jailed, that people get arrested, especially if it contradicts certain regime. And this is obviously one of the reasons why people usually speak up online, is because it's safe, like literally safe for their well-being. You never know what kind of people live around you. You never know if you're going to be beaten up, for example, or arrested. So especially being under the totalitarian regimes or oppressive regimes, you have even the government can be your enemy, and this is something to face. This is the unfortunate truth of many countries in our global society. So online activism may be more convenient for many people, even if people think that it's not as effective as offline activism, where people go for petition. But if it comes to the choice to be silent or to speak up, obviously I would go for speaking up. When it comes to online activism or offline activism, for speaking up, the easiest platform to do is the online platforms. But just like Lola said previously, online activism, once you start doing it, once you get certain ideas in your mind, once you have certain understanding of how things work, the offline platforms, they will follow. Especially if you're very much a believer in what you say, you can't just let it be. And if there is an opportunity to go and actually do something, I'm very confident that the majority of online activists would join an offline movement. This is just the connection that you get. And it comes to the second part of the question, influential for the audience. Obviously, the larger audience can be online, but at the same time, it really depends on the cause, and it really depends on the circumstances, on the country. If protests is one of the one of the biggest kind of offline activism comparison, but offline activism also doesn't end on the massive events, because, for example, I know that there is activists that actually go to roundtables with the government, that they work on reshaping constitution, reshaping lawmaking. This is also activism. This is also, and in this point, yes, you can go to a protest and it's going to be 1,000 people. You can make a video and you reach 500,000 people. You can have very large audience. And or you can go to a round table, if being part of certain groups, and create a legislation that will shape the lives of people around you. So there's different types of influences that you can do, but one way or another, the influence is there. So that's how I would put it.
Thank you very much, Maria. I think it's a very, very fascinating answer. And Lola, do you have something to add? What is your perspective?
Yeah, of course, as Marshall mentioned, it's up to the person itself to choose online or offline activism. So it's differ from the people perspective on different platforms as online or offline, arranged from the age, for example, like what to prefer, or it's more about costly of offline activism. It's more taking the costs, like it's more about to more safer platform and people to choose that's for example, and which one is more influential for the audience. I guess of online activism take more broader audiences, but offline activism, it's about the extent to what it's taken. It's more about the action and extent in contrast with online activism. I guess it's more influential one, but in contrast with the audience, it's the spectrum of the audience in online activism. It's more broader, I guess.
Thank you very much. I think we can take just one more question before our session ends. So,
Can we take the one? Yeah, this one.
yeah. Okay, so Najla is asking, in your opinion, what makes activism successful and what makes um, a good social activist?
So what makes activism, well, when we talk about the consequences of activism, obviously the successful ones are the ones that bring change. That's the essential. But I think, again, speaking from personal experience, everybody can define the success in their own way. I define success if I was able to positively impact at least one person's life, or lives in some shape or form, like my advice, or some people watch my videos and they're like, oh, that happened to me, therefore I was right in that situation to make them feel more secure and safe. I consider that a little success, but success indeed. But I just wanted to also mention the point, going back to responsibility, what makes good social activists. I think that in nowadays society, one of the best features that you can have is to be able to be true, actual, like check your facts. Because I know there are many different social movements, and as much as there is a good sides of things, that obviously the things that I believe in I consider to be good sides of things, but at the same time we do have activists, and we do have movements that suggest harmful actions. I'm not going to obviously spike a debate right now, but there is a group of people that promote issues that aren't healthy, that harm the society and stuff like that. So, and they also believe that this is something to work for, this is good. So what I'm going to, and in order to avoid these situations, in order to stop debating on moral sides of things, what's good and what's bad, we have to agree what's truth and what isn't. We have to check our facts, we have to check history, we have to check science. And I think that this is very, very essential to be constructive, and to do good fact checking, to make sure that the information that you present is authentic and is true, that you don't create facts and then promote them. And I think this is the best that activists can do. The sense of responsibility that, especially with a larger audience, once you start having audience, you need to understand that now you do have an impact. Now, whatever you say can be reciprocated and perceived in a certain manner. So try to be constructive and, and make yourself understood, basically. That I think what makes social activists better.
Thank you very much, Mariya. Lola?
Yeah, so what makes activism successful? I guess if you are already working to make a difference, you're an activist. If you're committed to some issues, I guess that's what make activism more successful. If you're willing to change, to make a change, and also, as Masha mentioned about the good and bad activism, so I guess it's also differ their perception of individual person or how they perceive the good or bad activism are. So for me personally, I guess it's working to help the vulnerable population in order to make the impact in society. So yeah, and take responsibility for your actions.
Yeah, it's especially, like I said it earlier, that as there's a two sides of the story. So yes, do as even if it's just a little thing that you can do as minimum effort as you can, but at the same time be responsible. So this is the kind of the idea that, as I say, that at the same time you aren't responsible for other people's lives, but at the same time you are almost. So there's a good sense of understanding of what you can do and how you impact people around you or people that follow you. And this is something I feel like you need to kind of understand in the beginning of your activist career, so that you don't harm. So that's basically the general idea. You can't harm nobody. Nobody can harm.
Because you influence on a larger
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah,
You take
so
responsibility.
there is a social responsibility. But Pavel, I just wanted to ask if we could just a little bit touch upon this question about the economy.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
and it can be our last question. So what's the impact of activism on growing economy? As I understood the question, we're talking about, economic situation in certain countries. And there isn't obviously concrete answer to that because I'm not an economic expert. But I just wanted to mention that activism is extremely influential nowadays in how it shapes the capitalism around us. Because even now, obviously we live in capitalism, and even now, social causes become a tool within the capitalism. And this is something for people to also face and to grasp, that even now businesses become more social aware, And we can, obviously there is a good and bad in that, and we're not going to go into the debates whether business should use social cause as a tool to promote the product and etc. But at the same time, we must understand that, for example, within the capitalist societies, business and government are very connected. Therefore, social cause, as much as it, when certain social causes are being promoted, when there is a huge awareness on different movements, the government will have to follow at some point. So in this sense, there is that impact that the government will have to take in consideration when creating legislation and when implementing certain legislations, that certain groups are no longer silent, and they have to be accounted for. And I think this is quite important when it comes to political management, because I mean, obviously there you can't really I can't give an expertise on growing economies and how they are impacted by
It was a great
activism.
contribution.
But yeah, but basically the role is just to make sure that you're heard. It's for social groups. So when social groups are heard, it influences everybody, all kinds of parties.
Thank you very much, Maria, one more time. And unfortunately, our session shall end soon, so it is time to end the Q&A session. So thank you very much, Maria and Lola, for such a great session. I hope for some of our audience, it will be productive and they will learn more about social activism and the ways
Oh,
how to save yourself. Yeah.
oh, thank you so much for having me. I wish you Skanso all the best. I wish all your projects to be successful, and yes, hopefully the goals are reached.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just before we end, a little more portion of information about C5+1 Youth Council. So, in 2016, with the U.S. Embassy in the Kyrgyz Republic collaboration, the American University of Central Asia has created a dynamic C5+1 Youth Council that brings together youth from Central Asia and Afghanistan with diverse backgrounds, leadership skills, and mindsets for positive change in 2016. Since January 2021, C5+1 Youth Council has been administered by the American Councils for International Education in Kyrgyzstan. The goal of C5+1 Youth Council is to increase connectivity and foster leadership skills for young students leaders through engagement on issues relevant to Central Asia and Afghanistan. The Youth Council is a diverse group of youth from Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan. Currently, the C5+1 Youth Council network consists of 81 YC alumni and 40 YC members. That's it. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe on our Instagram page and our Facebook page, LinkedIn page, and we also have a YouTube channel. So thank you again, Lola and Maria, for taking part in this session. I really appreciate it, and yeah, have the great rest of the day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.